So today we're going to be stepping off the beaten path a little bit.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at urban survival, and specifically in London.
Interesting.
So think about it. Imagine things go a bit pear-shaped,
Right.
power outages, transport strikes, or maybe even something a bit more serious.
Uh-huh.
Now, this deep dive, it's not about prepping for doomsday or anything like that.
Right.
It's about getting some practical knowledge so that we can navigate the unexpected. And to help us make sense of all this, we've got a great guide.
Oh, cool.
It's called Urban Survival, London's Hidden Guide.
Okay.
And it's by Conrad Riker.
Interesting.
And this guy, he's not just an armchair theorist.
Yeah.
He's actually lived through some of the things that he writes about.
Wow.
And to kind of kick things off, I think it's interesting how he dives straight into London's urban landscape.
Yeah.
And he really highlights how the dense population that we've got here can be both a help and a hindrance. Because on one hand, you've got lots of potential resources.
Yeah.
But on the other thing, you've got a lot of competition for those resources if things were to go wrong.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that people often overlook.
Yeah.
They think about all the stuff that's available in a city,
Right.
but they don't think about all the other people who are going to be wanting the same thing.
And that's when knowing where to find those resources and maybe even accessing them discreetly, that becomes absolutely key.
Yeah. It's not just about what's out there. It's about how to get to it when you need it most.
Absolutely. And then you've got that whole other side of London.
Yeah.
The tunnels, the abandoned stations, all of that.
Right.
Riker talks about these spaces as potential escape routes
Yeah.
or maybe even shelter.
That's fascinating.
It's like there's a whole other city beneath the surface.
It's true.
And he uses the London Underground as a great example.
Oh, yeah.
We usually just think about it for getting around town.
Yeah.
But during the Blitz, it actually became a massive shelter.
Right.
And that just goes to show how understanding these different layers of history can actually give you a real edge.
Absolutely. I think that historical perspective is so important
Yeah.
because it helps us to understand how people have dealt with these kinds of challenges in the past.
Yeah. And what worked and what didn't.
Exactly.
Now, Riker doesn't just stop at the physical stuff.
Okay.
He actually really emphasizes the importance of mental resilience.
That makes sense.
Because, let's face it, stress and fear, they can really cloud your judgment when it matters most.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're panicked, you're not going to be thinking straight.
Exactly. You need that inner strength
Yeah.
to be able to make good decisions.
And he gives some good advice on how to build that resilience, right?
Yeah, he does.
Things like deep breathing, mindfulness, even setting small goals, just to kind of keep your spirits up in a tough situation.
Yeah, it's that mental game that can really make or break you in a survival situation.
It's so true. And it's not just theory either.
Right.
I mean, think about the Blitzers. They weren't just hunkering down. They were organizing sing-alongs in the shelter.
Really?
Yeah, they were sharing stories, trying to keep each other's morale up.
That's amazing.
It's about fostering that community spirit, even in the face of danger.
So we've talked about the mental game, but what about the more practical side of things?
Okay.
Let's talk about water, because that's absolutely essential in a survival situation.
Yeah, you can't last long without it.
No, you can't. And Riker, he says that finding and purifying water should be your absolute top priority.
He's right.
Yeah. And London might be a concrete jungle, but there are actually more water sources than you might think.
Like what?
Well, he talks about rainwater collection,
Okay.
even accessing water mains, if it really comes down to it.
Oh, wow.
Although he does mention the legal side of that.
Right.
Because even in a crisis, the rules don't just disappear.
It's a tough balance, isn't it?
It is. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, because you need to do what you need to do to survive.
Right.
But you also don't want to break the law unnecessarily.
Exactly. And then once you've found your water source, you've got to purify it.
Yeah, that's essential.
And Riker goes into different methods.
Like what?
Boiling, using bleach, even portable filters.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about those.
Yeah, and he doesn't sugarcoat it.
Right.
He says that survival water,
Yeah.
it probably won't taste great,
Yeah,
but getting it safe, that's the priority.
absolutely. Safety first and taste later.
Exactly. So we've got water sorted,
Okay.
but you can't live on water alone.
No, you need food, too.
I mean, what about food? How do you find sustenance in an urban environment when the usual supply chains break down?
That's a good question. That's where things can get a bit tricky.
Yeah.
But Riker, he gets into the art of urban scavenging.
Okay.
And he talks about prioritizing canned goods, understanding expiration dates,
Right.
even knowing the best times and places to scavenge.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's all about maximizing your chances of finding something edible.
Now, he also talks about the ethical side of scavenging, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Because there's that balance between necessity and respecting what belongs to others.
A tough one.
It is.
Yeah.
And we saw that play out, during Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans.
Right.
Scavenging became absolutely vital for some people.
Yeah.
But it also sparked a lot of debate about right and wrong in those extreme situations.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
It's a complex issue.
It is.
Yeah.
And Riker uses that example of Katrina to really highlight those gray areas of survival.
You know, it's not always black and white.
No, it isn't.
Sometimes you have to make difficult choices.
Right.
And there's no easy answer.
Okay, so we've got water, we've got food, but what about communication?
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Imagine your phone's dead, internet's down.
Right.
How do you connect with others?
Especially if you need help.
Especially if you need help. Exactly. And that's where non-technological communication comes in.
Oh, interesting.
And Riker's a big advocate for this. Talks about visual signals,
Okay.
like smoke signals, flags, even coded messages left in public places.
Right.
Things that were absolutely essential before we became so reliant on technology.
And it's easy to forget about those things, isn't it?
It is. We take them for granted.
Yeah, we do.
But in a major power outage, all of those communication networks, they could just vanish.
And then what?
Exactly. And then suddenly knowing how to send a smoke signal.
Right.
Doesn't seem so outdated, does it?
No, it doesn't. And you know, he brings up a fascinating example from the Blitz.
Oh, yeah.
Londoners, they would paint messages on buildings.
Really?
Yeah, to guide people to shelter.
Wow.
It's amazing, isn't it? Just how resourceful people can be.
Absolutely. It's a testament to human ingenuity.
Yeah.
Finding ways to connect, even in the most challenging.
Yeah, even when it seems like everything's falling apart.
Exactly.
People find a way.
They do.
They always do.
And that's what's so inspiring about it.
Yeah.
It gives you hope
It does.
that even in the darkest of times, there's always a way forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great message to end on.
I think so too.
And you know, those communication skills that we were just talking about,
Yeah.
they become even more vital when you're talking about urban evasion,
Okay.
which is another big part of Riker's approach.
Right. So imagine you need to escape a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
You need to blend into the city, move unnoticed.
Right.
It's a whole different kind of survival challenge.
Absolutely. It's like you need to become a ghost,
Yeah.
just disappear into the urban landscape.
So how do you even begin to do that?
Well, Riker, he breaks it down for us.
Yeah.
And he says, understanding crowd dynamics, that's crucial.
Okay.
You need to know how to use London's layout to your advantage. Knowing those back alleys,
Yeah.
the hidden pathway.
It's like you're turning the city into your own personal obstacle course.
Exactly. And it's not just about reacting to a threat.
Okay.
It's about thinking ahead.
Right.
Having those escape routes planned out in advance.
So you got a mental map of the city's underbelly, so to speak.
You got it. But he does stress the importance of balance, though.
Okay.
You know, you don't want to become paranoid.
Right.
It's about awareness, not fear.
Being prepared, but not constantly looking over your shoulder.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about the physical and mental aspects of survival, the resources, the escape route.
Yeah.
But what about the tool?
The tools. Yeah. What does Riker recommend having in your urban survival kit?
Well, he's got a few essential.
Okay.
Top of the list, a high-quality multi-tool.
Okay.
You know, think pliers, screwdrivers, a file, all in one compact package.
It's like that Swiss Army knife approach, right?
Yeah.
Having a tool for every situation.
Exactly what else is on the list.
Yeah, what else?
A reliable flashlight.
Okay.
Especially if you're navigating those dark tunnels.
Right, or if there's a power outage.
Exactly. And of course,
Rep. Yeah.
a sturdy, comfortable knife.
Right. So I'm noticing a pattern here.
What's that?
It seems like it's all about multi-purpose tools.
No. Yeah.
Things that can be used in a variety of situations. It's about being adaptable.
Absolutely. And Riker really emphasizes this.
Okay.
He says owning these tools isn't enough.
Right.
You need to know how to use them effectively.
So practice is key.
Practice is key. Preparation is key.
He even includes instructions in the book, doesn't he?
He does.
Like on how to sharpen a knife or how to use a multi-tool for different tasks.
Man, it's all in there. He's very thorough.
It's not just about having the gear.
Nope.
It's about having the knowledge to actually put it to good use.
You got it. And you know what strikes me about Riker's approach?
What's that?
It's all about empowering people,
Yeah.
giving them the skills and the confidence to handle whatever comes their way.
That's a great observation, and it really ties into what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
With that mental resilience, that inner strength.
It's all connected.
It is. It's all part of the same package.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the practical stuff like finding water and food to the psychological aspects of survival.
What are some key takeaways for you from Riker's book?
That's a good question. I think what really stands out to me is how he manages to weave together those practical skills with a really deep understanding of human psychology.
Right. It's not just about what to do.
Nope.
It's about why you're doing it.
Exactly. He's not just telling you what to do.
Yeah.
He's helping you to understand why these things are important.
He's giving you the mental tools as well as the physical ones.
Precisely. And you know, another thing I really appreciate about his book
What's that?
is how he grounds everything in historical context.
Right.
He's constantly showing us how Londoners have used these techniques in the past.
Yeah. And that makes it more engaging, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Not just abstract survival concept.
Yep.
It's real people facing real challenges
Yep.
and finding ways to overcome them.
And I think that's a really key takeaway for our listener.
What's that?
Urban survival, it's not about becoming some kind of Rambo figure.
Yeah, right. It's about being resourceful, adaptable,
Yeah.
and having that mental fortitude to deal with unexpected situations.
And it's about understanding your environment.
Absolutely.
Because London, with its history and its layout,
Yeah.
it presents its own unique set of challenges and opportunities.
It does. And, we don't want to encourage paranoia or anything,
Right.
but having a basic survival plan, a well-stocked kit,
Yeah.
and some knowledge of basic survival skills,
Yeah.
that can make a world of difference if things ever do go wrong.
It's that old saying, right?
What's that?
It's better to have it and not need it
Yeah.
than to need it and not have it.
Exactly. But Riker, he takes it a step further.
Oh, really? How so?
He doesn't just want you to survive.
Okay.
He wants you to thrive.
I like that.
Yeah. He's all about empowering people to take control of their own safety and well-being.
I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this information.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
I know what you mean.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah, but it's definitely eye-opening.
It is, right? He covers so much ground in his book.
Yeah, he does.
He doesn't shy away from the complex issues,
Nope.
whether it's the ethics of scavenging or the psychological challenges of survival.
I think we need to take a moment to let all this sink in.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a bit to explore some of the more advanced techniques and strategies that Riker outlines in his guide. All right, so we've talked about mental resilience, scavenging for resource, but Riker, he doesn't stop there.
No, he doesn't.
He goes into some pretty specific
Okay.
that could pose some real challenges in an urban survival situation.
Like what?
Well, one area he focuses on is transportation hubs.
Okay.
So think airports, train stations,
Right.
places we usually think of as gateways.
Yeah.
But in a crisis, they could actually become choke points.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Real hotbeds of panic and confusion.
Everyone's trying to get out or get somewhere.
Exactly.
And those hubs just become bottlenecks.
Yeah. So what does Riker suggest for navigating that kind of chaos?
Well, he says awareness is paramount.
Okay.
You need to know the layout of the hub, identify potential exits,
Right.
have a backup plan in case your primary route is blocked.
So it's about thinking ahead,
Yeah.
anticipating those potential problems.
It's not just about knowing how to get in and out. It's about understanding the flow of people.
Yeah.
The potential dangers of being caught in a panicked crowd.
And communication in those situations must be crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
Trying to find your group, coordinate a plan,
Yeah.
all while you're in this chaotic environment.
It's a real challenge. And he actually dedicates a whole section to that.
Does he?
Yeah, he talks about having a prearranged meeting point,
Okay.
using hand signal, even writing messages on surfaces if you have to.
Wow.
It's about being adaptable, finding ways to communicate when those traditional methods might fail.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
How even in a modern city like London, those more primitive forms of communication could become vital.
It's true, we often forget about those things,
We do.
but they can be lifesavers in a crisis.
And he talks about the London Underground specifically, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Which could be a lifeline or a death trap, depending on the situation.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword.
I got to admit, the thought of being stuck down there during a crisis,
Yeah.
it's pretty unsettling.
It is. He acknowledges that fear,
Okay.
the darkness, the confined spaces,
Yeah.
the potential for things to go wrong very quickly.
But he also talks about the Underground's strengths.
He points out that it's resilient. It's a network of tunnels.
Yeah.
It can provide shelter from the elements.
So it's a matter of understanding both the risks
Yeah.
and the potential benefits.
Exactly, being prepared for both.
And what does he suggest?
Well, he suggests familiarizing yourself with the system's layout,
Okay.
studying the map, even exploring those lesser-known stations and passages.
It's about turning that unfamiliarity into an advantage.
Exactly, having that insider knowledge.
Knowing those hidden paths and escape routes.
Yeah, the ones that most people wouldn't even consider.
And he also talks about the importance of knowing the Underground's emergency procedure, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Knowing where the exits are, how to respond to different threats.
That's essential information.
Okay, so we've talked about transportation hubs,
Right.
the dangers and the opportunities they present.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
What about personal defense?
Yes, that's a big one.
What if you need to protect yourself or your resource
Yeah.
in a hostile environment?
Well, that's where things can get a bit tricky.
Yeah.
But Riker, he gets into the nitty-gritty of urban defense.
Does he?
He does, but he's very careful to emphasize
Yeah.
that it's not about becoming some kind of vigilante.
Right, because even in a survival situation, the law still matters.
Absolutely. He talks about choosing a defensible position,
Okay.
fortifying an existing structure, understanding its strengths and weaknesses.
So you're turning your home or your apartment
Yeah.
into a safe haven.
Exactly like creating your own mini fortress.
Adapting your surroundings to maximize your safety.
He actually draws parallels to the London Blitz.
Really?
Yeah, where citizens would reinforce their homes against bombing raids.
It's the same principle.
Exactly, but applied to a modern context.
So it's not just about brute force. It's about strategy.
Yeah.
Using your environment to your advantage.
And he also talks about the importance of stealth and observation.
Okay.
knowing the terrain, identifying potential threats, using concealment and misdirection
Right.
to avoid confrontation if possible.
It's that idea of being aware but not paranoid.
Exact. Prepared but not aggressive.
And of course, he emphasizes the legal and ethical considerations of self-defense.
Oh, absolutely.
Knowing your rights, understanding the potential consequences of your action.
It's a complex issue.
It is.
And he doesn't shy away from that complexity.
It's a good reminder that
Yeah.
even in extreme those moral and legal boundaries still exist.
They do. We can't just throw them out the window.
But Riker doesn't just leave you with a set of survival skills.
No, he doesn't.
He takes it a step further.
He does.
He talks about rebuilding society after a disaster.
Yeah, he's giving you the roadmap not just to survive,
Right.
but to thrive in a post-crisis world.
He talks about communication, establishing network,
Yeah.
sharing information, coordinating resources.
And it's about reconnecting with others, finding those who survived,
Yeah.
and starting to rebuild that sense of community.
And leadership in those situations must be
Yeah.
so crucial.
Oh, it is. Someone needs to step up,
Right.
make decisions, guide the group.
What does Riker suggest?
Well, he actually suggests a more democratic approach
Interesting.
where the community comes together
Yeah.
to choose its leaders, establish rules.
Create a new social contract
Exactly. It's like hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
A chance to build a better society.
based on cooperation and shared values.
Exact. And he also talks about justice and accountability,
Okay.
deterring crime, maintaining order.
So it's about creating a sense of fairness,
Yeah.
even in the most challenging circumstances.
Absolutely. And through it all, he emphasizes the importance of hope.
Hope, yeah.
It's that belief that things will get better, that resilience that keeps you going, even when all seems lost.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a powerful message.
It is. And I think Riker's ultimate message
Yeah.
is that urban survival, it's not just about individual skill.
No, it's not.
It's about the human spirit.
Absolutely.
The ability to adapt,
Yeah.
overcome, and rebuild.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Conrad Riker's Urban Survival, London's Hidden Guide.
Yeah,
It's a fascinating read.
it is.
Packed with practical advice, historical insights,
Yeah.
even philosophical reflections on the nature of survival.
He really covers all the bases.
It does. It's a valuable resource for anyone living in a city,
Absolutely.
not just for those preparing for a disaster.
It's about seeing your environment with new eyes,
Yeah.
recognizing those hidden resources and potential vulnerability.
And for those who want to delve deeper into Riker's urban survival wisdom,
Yeah.
his book is available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Check it out.
We highly recommend it.
You might just change the way you see the world around you.
It certainly changed mine.
Mine too.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into urban survival.
Okay.
Stay safe out there.
Yeah.
And remember, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.